from the Beer to Whiskey Studios high atop Barley's Tap Room in downtown Greenville, South Carolina. I'm Russ Heaps, and welcome to this episode of Big John in 5. And that's where I get my good buddy here, Big John Richards, to pick a beer from one of Barley's 72 taps or so, whatever the count is today. And we look at it, we examine it, we sniff it, we sip it, we kibitz about it. Sometimes John shares a little bit about brewing, and he almost always shares something about the brewery. So, having laid all that out there, John, what do we got?
Quick and dirty on that.
I know. Well,
we're
we're running behind today. We've run into some issues.
Yes, things happen.
Yes.
So we're drinking Anchor Porter. And Anchor is a San Francisco brewery, and probably legitimately the most important brewery to craft brewing in modern craft brewing history.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
You would categorize that, okay.
And I'll tell you why. Because beer was dying. Beer was not really a thing in the 60s and 70s. It was becoming lighter and clean. You know, people were getting rid of ingredients and adding stupid stuff that was poisonous to make it look prettier when you poured it into a glass, and you know, it just wasn't a pretty picture.
None of those things are good. None of those things are good.
There was fewer than 50 breweries in the United States in 1970. Like 1973 is the year we usually point to.
And you know, all I can tell you about beer in the early 70s is I was in college, and we drank Ertles 92. So
right.
And thought that was doggone good because it was, I think, $1.49 a six pack or something.
Right. Oh yeah. Quality.
Exactly.
So 1965, Fritz Maytag bought the Anchor Brewery. Ben Maytag you will recognize from the washers and dryers.
Oh, okay.
Folks.
That Fritz Maytag.
That Fritz Maytag. Decided he didn't want any part of the Maytag business and decided he wanted to open a brewery, so he bought this Anchor Brewery to kind of resurrect it because it was getting ready. I mean, they were just going to shut their doors.
Right.
And Fritz decided he was going to buy the thing and see if he could make a go of it. So he started brewing steam beer, which was kind of the California steam had been used for 100 years as a sort of slang term for beer. I'm going to go get a pint of steam, and so when he brewed this beer, it sort of replicated what all those California beers were doing and created something that actually tasted good. Of course, then he started brewing some of these nicer British styles, bigger styles, more aggressive styles. Porter was one of the first ones. He was probably the first modern craft American IPA, Liberty Ale, and then one of the first and longest running Christmas beers that was being offered at a brewery. And in the first 10 years he was open, I mean, he almost single-handedly resurrected beer in California. And then folks like Sierra Nevada and Jack McAuliffe and New Albion and some of those other guys across up and down the coast were getting some steam along the way. But Fritz was, by basically all accounts, the first. And so he is also responsible for helping define a lot of these styles because, you know, if you're the first guy to brew that style, then you're the one who
right.
That's to determine.
Well, that's what everybody wants to copy.
Right. Yeah. So we're going to get into this porter and talk about that classic British style porter, that very clean coffee base. It's dry, but it's light bodied. It's a mouthful, but it's not aggressive anywhere. It's not a big full bodied monster of a beer. It's 5.6%. It's built to be. I mean, that's your classic working man's lunch in London was a hunk of ham and a hunk of cheese and a pint of porter. That's how you ate lunch.
I'd go back to work to do that.
All right, absolutely. So we'll get into sipping this thing and we'll start talking about it. But that's the quick and dirty history of Anchor and how legitimately important they are in craft brewing even today. And they're no longer privately owned, and that's the story of the best of them. But let's get into this thing.
Text Miss Lily.
Cheers. I got into that sip a little faster than I meant to because it was right there at the top.
Well, that's okay. We both had a rough morning.
That's
so
right. It was just time to go.
Yeah, it's just no, we're not messing around.
Right. And you feel how clean and bready that is.
Yeah.
The coffee up front, but it finishes with just sort of bread crust and
Yep. Wow, that's
a
good.
little bit of spice on the finish, maybe almost like a grainy kind of a spice.
I'm getting so much bread out of it. I don't really.
Yeah.
I'm not picking up much of anything else on the finish.
It tastes like a dark roll, like a dark bread roll. Like
Yeah, it
pepper
does.
roll.
Yeah, yeah, yep.
It was wonderful, and that's exactly what it should be. It should be uncomplicated. It should be refreshing almost. It should be dry. I mean, for a dark beer to drink this clean.
Yeah, it is. It is dry. The finish is really. It's saying to me, have another sip.
Right.
That's what it's saying to me.
And and you can imagine you're knocking down a bite of cheese and a roll every time you whip between sips. How much this would wash that down just
Yeah.
perfectly.
Yep. Nice.
Yeah, fun stuff. So Anchor went through, of course, Fritz. This would have been 60 years almost since he bought the brewery by now, but I'm getting my dates wrong. The mid 2000s, 2005, 2007, something like that. He ended up selling out to an investment group that was buying up little small, breweries and stuff. And that investment group turned into Anchor Beer and Spirits. And I think in like 2017, that whole thing got bought up by Sapporo.
Okay.
So now we're drinking a Sapporo.
You can't tell the players without a program.
But that's right. But that's what's happening, and I legitimately I don't know how to feel about that.
Yeah.
And on some level, it leads to better beer. On some level, it takes away from some of the great experimental and fun and different things because they don't want to risk their hard-earned money on something that's not as good. So with standardization, you get rid of the truly bad, but you also get rid of the exceptionally good. And that's where the hang-up really is. If you look at Europe or most of the rest of the world, the best beer in the country is brewed by one of the big brewing conglomerates, some multi-billion-dollar company.
Yeah.
And the little beers that you get in every little town are average at best. And part of that's buying power, and part of that's standardization, like we just said. But that's what's scary about what's happening here is we have so much great beer that is a product of a lot of weird experimentation that would not happen under the umbrella of Sapporo or
Right.
Anheuser-Busch or any of the big guys because they're too big to do that kind of experimentation. All of that to say, go support your local breweries because they're the ones that are going to really benefit your community. They're the ones that are going to bring you your crazy craft beers and the different stuff where every time you go
Sure.
into a restaurant, you can get a different beer.
Yep.
That you can't do that in a lot of places, overseas. So we're in a delicate place right now.
Well, I'm going to enjoy it while we can.
I think so too, and I'm going to enjoy this beer, even though it's a conglomerate beer. But I'm gonna choose some smaller scale stuff too before we get all done with this thing
All
today.
right. We'll see you next time.
Cheers.